Hi, so my name is Michelle Annett, and I'm here on behalf of my co-authors, Tovi, Daniel, and George, to talk about some work that I undertook as a postdoc at Autodesk Research and the DGP Lab. So for the next few minutes, we're going to dive into the wonderful world of movable papercraft. Yay! Okay, so this starts out with a very interesting story. So back in January, I was trying to come up with a fun interactive dinner menu. Sorry. A fun interactive dinner menu for my Walt Disney World wedding. The theme of my wedding was fun, vibrant, and playful, and I wanted my guests to be able to actually play with the dinner menu. So after a lot of thought and iteration, you can see some examples here. I came up with the design that you see here. So basically, you rotate one of the ears of the Mickey Mouse head, and then you can see, in this case, little faces appear, but I was going to replace that with the actual content of the dinner. This was actually really hard to make. This took me like a couple hours. And through this whole process, I realized, oh, I actually made something that's called a movable. So being an HCI researcher, I was really intrigued. I was like, oh, wait, I need to learn more about this. This is potentially really cool. So I soon learned that movables are a type of papercraft, as you can see here, in which one or more elements are touched or moved by the user to generate effects. So in these examples, I'm pulling things, and things are moving up and down, or as you see the rotating Mickey Mouse head, which is what we actually ended up using, the menu that my guests were having rotated on Mickey's head. Yeah. Okay, so you may be thinking, oh, I've kind of seen these things before, and you're completely right. Movables are usually found in children's books or as part of more expensive greeting cards. There are many, many different types of movables. So for example, things can be lifted, such as this lift the flap book. Things can be pulled to reveal content or bring content closer together or make it grow. Things can be spun around, or the whole page itself can be moved. And such interaction can even allow content to appear or disappear. So to better understand movables, how they're actually made, I went to a local bookstore and I randomly sampled 504 children's books. What I ended up finding is that there is a wide variety of actual movable papercraft. There are things like pop-ups, which most people are familiar with. There are lift the flaps, which I showed, which was the little, what was it called? It's a frog. Lily pad, right, where the lily pad lifted up and down. There's also things where wheels rotate, which was sort of like what you saw in the Mickey head. So there's this really wide variety. Whoops, wrong way. Okay, to better understand, I looked at these 500 books, and then I tried to kind of understand, okay, how many movables are there in a book? How many are per page? And basically we ended up finding that 16% of children's books on average have movables. Usually there are 9 effects per book, 1 effect per page. There were some books that had like multiple effects per page, but these were generally repeated effects. So you would lift up 8 different windows on the page to see different content. It wasn't you lift something, you turn something, you pull something. The results of this exploration, even though it did take a while because it was 500 books, revealed to me a few important things. Number one, that you have to support a variety of different effects because books have tons of different ways that they introduce interactive content, and that automated software could really help improve not only the variety of effects, but also the creation of movables themselves. So I'm going to show some videos that are actually from the Smithsonian that illustrate how a pop-up book is made. So basically what happens is an author will create a story. They will then work with what's called the paper engineer, who's the person who actually designs the mechanics for the interactive book. So in this case, you can see that he has drawn a number of pieces of content. He's then cutting it out with scissors. He's assembling it with tape and glue to come up with his initial prototype. Then he deconstructs that. Oh, I can turn this one off. There we go. So he then deconstructs, turn off. Okay. Oh, so he then will deconstruct that content. It will be scanned on a scanner, if you can believe it, put into a program like Photoshop. They will manually trace around the different components, add in any artwork, then they print it out again. They physically cut it out with scissors and an X-Acto knife. Sorry. They create the final prototype, and then it gets sent off to a factory where custom dies are made to actually cut multiple versions of the book. And then you actually get the pop-up that you see here, which is from a very famous pop-up author, Chuck Fisher, his book Angels. So this whole process usually takes between 6 months to a year and a half to actually make a pop-up or a movable book. And through my creation of my little menu for my wedding and what I had seen so far, I realized there's lots of opportunity to actually innovate in the movable space. So to this end, I work with Tovi, George, and Daniel to create Moveable Maker, which is a novel software program that allows novices, experts, or basically people who do not have mechanical design expertise to design, create, and generate, generate, and assemble movable papercraft. Okay, so we had a number of goals, which I won't go through all of them here. The first one was personalization. As I said with my wedding menu, I couldn't just go to the store and buy one, and there is no online service that would make a Mickey head. So we really wanted to focus on how do we allow people to actually create unique, interesting content that's personally meaningful to them. We're also interested in scalability and miniaturization, because as I said, a lot of the work right now is done with scissors and X-Acto knives. And that really reduces what you can actually create because you're limited by the stability of your hand with an X-Acto knife and your own patience. So if we can use automated processes to help this out, then maybe we could make things that are very, very small or movables that are very, very large. The last piece I'll talk about is permanency. Anyone who has children who have had a movable book will probably profess that number one, they're expensive, and number two, they fall apart very quickly. Most of the time, this is due to children being a little rough with the book or the actual materials that are used. So we were really interested in coming up with a way that would support a wide range of materials, from something that's quick and easy to prototype like paper to things that are more long-term like wood and acrylic. So before I show you the software, these are 11 different examples of the movables that we can actually create with our software. So you can see some. Oh, there we go. So you can see that users can lift things, they can rotate things, they can pull things, they can touch different elements. So everything is really visually exciting and interactive. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through an example of how to create this SpongeBob SquarePants themed rotating wheel. So basically, as you see, the user rotates the wheel underneath, and different emotions show up in the little window. Okay, so the basic workflow of designing movables requires the software that we created. We quickly realized that visuals are very important, as the output is very visual and engaging. We wanted to make sure that the creation process was also visual and engaging, so we repurposed Ron Becker's animated icons from many years ago. And so as the user moves the mouse over the different effects that they can choose from, they can see a little animation of exactly what the effect will do. We also realized, after I deconstructed like 30 or 40 movable books, that all movables can basically be thought of as 3 different layers. You have the visual content you actually see, you have the underlying content, which is the mechanics, which could be gears or stop and support pieces, and then you have the actual base content, which is the support for the whole design that you're creating. And so if you layer the 3 of them together, then you can get the movable content. And so our software initially hides the back and the kind of mechanics layers from view for people who do not want to really understand how the movable works. They just want to make something pretty that turns or rotates. But if you do want to see what is going on in the back, you can just use the radio buttons on the side, and then it cycles through the different layers. Okay, so as with any design that you can add elements to, there are a number of constraints that we have to be mindful of. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will say that for each design, there's basically between 5 and 10 different constraints that we look at. As you add more elements to the design, so if you add 3 rotating wheels, we have additional constraints that we look at. One thing I will talk about, though, is this idea. So with the rotating wheel, we need to have an area where you can actually put your fingers to rotate the wheel. And this has to be anchored along an edge, because you need to use both fingers to rotate the wheel. Most users would not think about this during the design process, so we created this constraint-based rendering technique, whereas the user resizes the content or moves it around on the screen. The area where they would actually be moving their fingers, or the area where they would put their fingers to move the wheel, resizes based on where they have put the content. Okay, we also support a number of personalization techniques, so the user can change where, in the case of our rotating wheel, the little hand rotate area is, the size of the little cutout shape, where it occurs, the size of the page, all those kind of things. The user can also add their own photos to the movables, drawings, text, freeform images, all that kind of fun stuff. Oops, wrong one. Oh, yeah, here we go. And then in this example, we're adding the actual SpongeBob face and a few other pieces of content. Okay, so once you've designed your movable and you've figured out what you wanted to do, our software basically generates 3 different files that you can print. So you can just use a standard office printer. And so we get the front piece, the mechanic piece, and the back layer, which in this case, the mechanic piece is just a little rotating wheel with the SpongeBob heads. We also then generate 3 files that can be used for computer-controlled tools, along with an instruction file. So as you can see here, we generate a file that will cut out the front piece that has the little window and the place for your fingers. We generate another file that has the actual wheel, and then a file that has the back piece, which does have another little area where you can rotate the wheel. Okay. So to actually cut this, because the cutting process is very important to movables because they are quite precise, especially if you're using gears, we use what's called the Silhouette Cameo hobbyist paper cutter. So basically it's like sort of like a printer, except it has a blade in it, and so the paper will go through the printer, and then it will cut the design for you, as you can see here, and then you just simply peel it off, and then you have your pieces. So I take it out, I peel it off, there we go. Okay, so, right, once you have all of your pieces, you can look at the instructions that we have generated to put the different elements together. Right, so in this example, I'm putting the front piece down, the mechanic wheel, the back piece, folding over the little pin that we have, and then you'll see that that is how we made our movable. So this is a relatively simple example, but I think it shows how we take the 3-layer idea and then go all the way down to the actual creation of the movable. Because it's interesting to actually figure out what users think about this process, especially because most people are not familiar with movables, we ran a few workshops where we had users come in, they tested the software and they got to make their own movables. This is some examples of what they actually created. So I won't talk about all of these. I have hundreds of pictures of what people made. But basically, this one here with the giraffe was created by someone who really liked the Last of Us video game, and he was very excited that he was able to take something digital that he really enjoyed playing with and create a physical instantiation of it that he could share with other people and show other people. I had lots of comments about people being excited that they could make things for their kids or that their kids would really love this. So I have loads and loads of comments. But what I will say is that a lot of people were excited about the educational aspect. So they got to learn how they could make these things, especially as they were not mechanical engineers themselves. In addition to that, I got a lot of comments about people using this for children's birthday parties. I had some parents ask if I would be the activity at the birthday party, which is not usually what happens in HCI, so that was kind of cool. And then a lot of people with children also said that this would be really great for STEM-based education or possibly instruction manuals, that kind of thing. So that was those types of comments were really encouraging. Okay, so in conclusion, I presented Moveable Maker, which is our take on enhancing the process of designing, generating, and assembling movable papercraft. Beyond children's books, we do believe that this approach would be useful for interactive paper prototyping, instruction manuals, as you can kind of see here, educational aids, storyboarding, and then obviously making wedding menus. So I hope you enjoyed our little exploration into movable papercraft, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Daniel
Hi.
Ash, Rochester Institute of Technology. I love this. This makes me really happy. So I'm curious what the learning curve was like for your participants and how they got an understanding of what the capabilities of the system were and what they could actually do with it.
Okay, yeah. So I kind of speeded through the user study part, but basically we explained movables first of all. Then we guided the users through the creation of one of the 11 movables that we had. So they actually went through the whole process of drag it over, make some customization options, print it, cut it, look at the instructions, assemble it. And then they were given 40 minutes to basically make whatever they wanted. I had some people who only made one thing, and they were very focused on, I want to make something with gears that rotates and stuff, whereas other people were more interested in making multiple things. I did have some comments about, it would be great if I could use magnet paper, or I could integrate electronics, that kind of thing. But I didn't have too many comments about, this is kind of complicated or confusing, because the step-by-step instructions and the fact that we had these 3 layers so you can easily see, okay, this is the front, this is the back, and this is the middle, really helped the assembly process.
And they were getting the graphics by themselves from the internet? It wasn't something you provided?
So we had graphics that they could look at, they could go online, they could bring in their own stuff. And then we did have scrapbooking materials, so you saw there was a little foam elephant. But they were basically free to use whatever they wanted. So, hi.
Yeah, thank you for a nice presentation. Karthik Ramani from Purdue. My question is directed at the learning side of it. What, in your opinion, is the right balance between trying to make, failing, not working, fiddling around, and all those elements of creativity that that's sometimes a struggle to learn through play versus the level of automation that much of us in this community want to bring into the space?
Yeah. Okay, so so in the user study, we wanted to make sure that everyone would be successful. All the constraint checking and everything that we had turned on was designed specifically so that at the end they would be able to walk away with something and be happy with it. I think the more we dial back the constraints, you do allow for more creativity, but then if you do not have the knowledge to understand how things work. So I had one, or actually this one, the storyboard. In the back, there's actually gears that are allowing the pieces to move back and forth. If you don't understand that these 2 gears have to mesh, and then these 2 gears have to mesh, and they have to be a certain size, if you don't have that knowledge, you're going to fail, but you're going to learn at the same time. So I personally think it's better to have people fail because you learn a lot through failure, but I can also see for people who, let's say, are parents who do not have the time to learn how to make, a greeting card where things move for their kid and they just want it to work, then full automation can be very helpful.
Just a comment, I think the general one-size-fits-all is not right, and different learners have different levels of entry points and scaffolding that needs to learn.
Yes, exactly.
We have just for me.
Just quick thing, do you plan to make this software publicly available?
You're like the 15th person who's asked me that.
Take our money, please.
Yeah, just strongly recommend you to do so. It looks very useful and fun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't have any explicit plans, but so the paper cutter I used is $200, and you can buy it at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or Amazon. All the paper materials we used are really cheap. So it's just a matter of me, getting my butt in gear and putting it online and making it not buggy. But I will take that into consideration because, like I said, lots of people have asked, especially if you have kids. Oh my God, people with kids really want to make things. So, yeah.